What's up, everybody? Kina here, and it finally happened. The credit overlords have spoken, bestowing upon me an 800 credit score. What an honor. For those who don't know, credit scores can go as high as 855, but 800 is the threshold in which most people consider it a perfect score. And now that I've crossed this milestone, I'm going to share exactly how you can do it as well. Let's get into it. Society, and for a lot of us, our parents, have stressed the importance of a good credit score. But why does this actually matter? Well, at the end of the day, it boils down to saving money, which is something that, if you watch this channel, I'm sure you love to do. So having good credit helps anytime that we want to leverage our money. And this is because it enables us to get the lowest possible interest rate. Say, for example, we want to go get a mortgage on a house or a loan for a car. Having good credit means less money to the bank in the form of interest charges, potentially saving you hundreds or even thousands of dollars per month. And over the course of your life, you can literally save tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars just by following the tips that I'm going to outline in this video. At the end of the day, you can think of your credit score as a report card, but for real life. And the great thing is that it costs absolutely nothing to get an 800 score. Just a little bit of your time and effort. In order to get a perfect score, we need to understand first how the system grades us. And there are 5 categories that make up your credit score. The first and most important is on-time payment history, which makes up 35%. This is very simple. Just don't miss a payment. Ever. At least you can't miss one if you want a perfect score. But if you have missed payments, it's really not the end of the world. For starters, most negative marks on your credit drop off after 7 to 10 years, and then you're good. But also, the longer your credit history gets, the less of an issue this is. So let me illustrate how this works. First, to calculate payment history, the credit overlords divide on-time payments by total payments and then turn this around into a percentage, as you can see here. So, as an example, say you opened a credit card 5 years ago, that means that there's been 60 payments, right? 5 years, 12 months in a year, that's 60. So if you missed one, you'll end up with a 98.3% payment ratio. And looking at this graph here from the website Credit Karma, that puts us firmly in the yellow area, which is not great. Now, say another 5 years elapses with no missed payments. Now we're dividing 119 on-time payments by 120 possible, and the payment percentage is over 99%, putting us in the green section. Now, this applies to all types of credit, not just credit cards. So say you opened an auto loan and a credit card at the same time, just for the sake of this example, say we did this 3 years ago. That means that there's been 36 monthly payments on each for a total of 72. So say you missed one payment on your credit card last year and you missed one payment on your auto loan this year, that gives you 70 on-time payments out of a total of 72. So if you multiply this by 100, then you get 97.2% payment history, and that's also not good, it's in the red. In reality, the algorithm is a bit more sophisticated than this. It factors in severity. So for example, if you miss a payment and you owe $5,000 on a credit card, that is going to hit you more than if you miss a payment and you only owed $500 on that credit card. And it also factors in how recently the payment was missed. So if you missed a payment 2 years ago, that's going to have a lesser impact than if you missed it yesterday. Anyways, as you can see from the examples, the length of credit history helps, with longer being better. And with a lot of these things, it just helps to be patient. A couple of points of clarification. You only have to make the minimum payment on the credit card each month in order for it to be counted as an on-time payment. So it's important to do that, even if you can't afford to pay in full every month. Also, be aware that most utilities don't report to the credit bureaus. So if you've been making your phone payment or your electricity payment every month, that's probably not going to help you. Unless you become delinquent on that account, in which case it will show up as a negative mark on your credit. That's just the way things go. And lastly, it's important to know that most blemishes on your credit will go away after 7 years. Now, there are some rare items, like, for example, if you had a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, that will stay on your credit report for 10 years, and there's even rarer things that stick around for longer. But generally speaking, after 7 years, blemishes will fall off of your credit report. So here are my tips for this category. 1, don't miss any payments. That one was probably obvious. And 2, be patient because longer credit histories decrease the impact of, individual missed payments. And lastly, always, always, always make the minimum payment on all your credit cards, even if you can't afford to pay in full. Okay, let's move into the next category, which is credit utilization. And this is the second most important thing for your credit score. It makes up 30% of your score. Basically, lenders want to be sure that you're not maxing out all of your credit cards because taking advantage of a huge percentage of available money signals to the banks that you could be in dire straits. I don't know. It's less risky if you're only spending a small part of your credit limit as opposed to if you're spending a bigger part. That's the logic behind it. So as we can see from this Credit Karma graphic, good is under 30%, and ideally you want to have under 10% credit utilization to get the best score. So let's talk about how this is all calculated. Basically, we take the total debt that you have and you divide it by available credit. It is important to note that this only applies to credit cards. So any type of installment loan, like a student loan, auto loan, or mortgage, that doesn't have any impact on this category of credit utilization. So as an example, if you're somebody that has one credit card and that card happens to have a $10,000 limit, and say you spend $1,000 on that card in a given month, your utilization is 10%. What's good about this is that most of the credit scoring algorithms out there have no memory effect. And this means that if your utilization is high in 1 month and then you pay off your card in full, it doesn't matter what happened before, your utilization falls and your credit score bumps up. So, this happens to a lot of people when they make a big purchase in 1 month. Maybe their score will slightly dip, but then when they pay it off, it's like it never even happened. You also have to remember that the dollar amount means nothing. It's just the total percentage. So if you have one credit card with a $1,000 limit and you spend $999, that's a 99% utilization. But if you got the same card with a $10,000 limit, then it's about a 10% utilization, and the percentage is all that matters. Okay, so here are my tips. First, and maybe this is counterintuitive, but opening more credit cards helps because your credit limit line, your overall credit limit goes up. Second, just ask for a credit line increase every year or so on each card. You can usually do this just right in the app. You click a few buttons, but some cards, maybe you have to call the bank. And lastly, a cool trick is that you can make a partial payment before the credit card statement closes. And that way, even if you're using more than 10% of your available credit, when the statement closes, because you made a partial payment, you'll owe less than 10%, and it won't reflect that way or pull your score down. And this is an especially good trick to use if you're about to take out a loan or have your credit pulled for an important reason. You can kind of push your score up a little bit by keeping that utilization low right before that event happens. All right, let's look at the next category, which is the average length of credit history. And this accounts for 15% of your score. I guess length does matter. Anyways, it's actually not total length, it's average length. So for example, if you opened one account 5 years ago and then you opened a new credit account today, the average length is reduced to 2.5 years. And it's because of this that it's important to keep your oldest lines of credit open, because as we know, after 7 to 10 years, a closed account will fall off your credit report. And when it does do that, it'll decrease the average age and therefore your credit score. You can see here that I fall into the orange category, which is bad, with an average age of credit of 3 years and 9 months. And the reason why this is so low is because I've only had credit cards for about 10 years and because I opened so many credit cards for all the bonuses. But the reason I still have an 800 credit score is because this section only accounts for 15% of your score. So it is what it is. Okay, here are my tips. First, get credit early, like the day you turn 18, or I guess the second best time if you don't have any credit would be right now. And of course, always use that credit responsibly. And second, always keep your oldest credit card lines open, even if you're only spending a couple bucks per month on them, just so that they don't fall off and harm your score. So unlike some of the other categories, this one is really mostly about having patience. You can see here that Credit Karma wants over 9 years average age to be in their top green category. Again, that's just the way that it is. Okay, the fourth category that goes into calculating your credit score is total lines of credit, and this makes up 10% of your score. What's interesting is that this directly counteracts the third category, the average age category, because more accounts is going to decrease your average age. So more accounts, good. but average age, bad, or well, as it goes down, it's bad. Whatever, you get the idea. It is counterintuitive. You would think that banks would want to lend to people who don't need credit, but in fact, the scoring algorithms reward people who have more active loans and lines of credit. I think the thinking behind this is that you are demonstrating responsible use of the credit that you have. And if you have more credit, then you're more responsible, I guess. I do think this all sounds like backwards thinking, but that is how it is. So if we look here, Credit Karma is looking for 21 lines of credit to fall into their highest green category. Now that's just insane. That's even for me, that's a lot of lines of credit. So I don't know if people are realistically going to hit that, but hey, I guess that's what they're looking for. Okay, here are my tips for this category. First, don't be afraid to open new lines of credit. But again, and I shouldn't have to say this, but only open accounts that you can responsibly manage and ones that you need. Because in the end, if you open accounts that you can't manage, things will just be much, much worse. So don't do that. And second, it's important to have a good mix of account types. So if you have credit cards, which are a type of revolving credit, and if you also have installment loans like a student loan, auto loan, or a mortgage, the different types of loans will also help boost this category. Okay, so the last category is total inquiries, and this makes up the final 10% of a credit score. To do best in this category, I guess Credit Karma says that you need to have less than 2 inquiries. So, okay, hold on. Let's get into what an inquiry is. So each time you apply for credit, the lender will do what's called a hard pull of credit and then evaluate you. And these types of hard inquiries stay on your credit report for 2 years, but they typically will only have a negative impact on your score for 12 months. The logic, I think, behind this is that if you go out and you ask for a ton of new lines of credit all at once, maybe the banks think that you're about to run out of money and you're getting desperate and you're not going to pay them back. So I think that's the logic behind this category. It's important to mention there's another thing called a soft pull of credit. And just right off the bat, this doesn't impact your credit at all. So you should know that. Soft inquiries typically happen like for pre-approvals. So a lot of times when you're shopping for a house, for example, you'll get pre-approved by the bank. They'll do a soft pull then. And then when you actually find a house that you want and you're trying to lock in a rate, then they'll do the hard pull. So that's one example of when a soft pull could happen. Another thing to touch on is that if you're shopping around for the best rate, so say, for example, you're car shopping and you've been checking with like local credit unions and banks trying to get the best loan, typically you're going to have like a succession of hard pulls all within the same few weeks. And the credit scoring overlords don't want to penalize you for this. So it does depend based on the credit scoring algorithm, and without getting too into it, there's like 4 main ones: FICO 8, FICO 9, Vantage Score 3, Vantage Score 4. Depending on which one is being used to evaluate you, which again, you kind of will have no idea what algorithm the lender is pulling from. But depending on which algorithm we're talking about, all of the hard pulls within a 14-day period might get lumped into one, within a 30-day period might get lumped into one, or within a 45-day period might get counted as a single inquiry. Again, as long as they're for the same type of thing. So, hard pulls regarding an auto loan in this example. So the takeaway here is to be safe. If you're rate shopping, do it all within a 2-week time span. Have all those hard pulls hit within a 2-week period, and they should all get counted on one across all of the scoring algorithms. Okay, so let's break down my tips for this category. First, keep track of how much you're asking for credit. That probably should be a no-brainer. Second, ask for credit only when you need it. And lastly, if you're gonna make a big purchase, like, maybe you're gonna get a mortgage down the road in a year or two, or you're gonna buy a new car a couple years down the road, one strategy that you could use is open up a whole bunch of credit cards or other lines of credit now. And that way you can use the next couple of years to build your score faster. And by the time you do end up applying for that bigger item, the hard inquiries will have fallen off your credit report and you'll have the benefit of more credit history. So that's just a thought. You don't have to do that, but I thought I'd throw it out there. Cool, so that about covers the 5 categories that impact your credit score. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to give out a couple of closing thoughts. So the first would be that it's smart to monitor your credit on a regular basis. And the good news is that this is really easy to do. Almost any credit card that you get these days in the app on your phone, you can see some scoring algorithm. You can see your credit score from one of the bureaus or algorithms, which is cool. You can also use like Credit Karma or Credit Sesame, And while those websites are not going to give you a perfectly accurate score, it's going to be close enough to know when things are happening and when your score is moving. Another thing is, well, unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably seen ads for Experian Boost.
Raise it instantly with Experian.
I got 13 points.
Boost your credit scores instantly, only with
Experian.
This is a program that I want to talk about for a sec. It's where you give Experian, which, if you didn't know, Experian is one of the 3 credit bureaus, access to data from accounts that they normally wouldn't see. So, for example, you could give Experian read-only access to your checking account, and then they could look at the data and notice that you're paying rent on time every month and use that to increase your score. And right off the bat, this definitely can work. You can boost your score this way. Personally, I think this is invasive, and I don't recommend it. For one, the Equifax hack that happened a few years ago, I think that's still on the top of everybody's mind. If that were to happen to Experian, maybe a whole bunch of your personal data would get exposed. I don't really like that. And then the other thing is, just practically, Experian is only one of the 3 credit bureaus. So if a prospective lender is going to pull from, Equifax or TransUnion, the other bureaus, it doesn't matter what Experian shows. If they're pulling from one of the other lenders, it's not going to help you. So anyways, my recommendation, skip out on this program. Doesn't seem worth it. But unless you really needed to boost your credit and you knew that the lender was going to look at Experian. So that's my thoughts. And lastly, be aware that just any credit score above about a 760 is not typically going to help you get a better rate. So once you hit that threshold, going for a higher score really is just for perfectionists or for people that want weird financial bragging rights like I do. Something to keep in mind. Okay, so that about wraps this one up. If this was useful to you, if you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me to grow, and it lets me know that this content is valuable. Anyways, thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.